إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah we continue with the Sunan Abi Daawud. The next hadith is hadith 276. So we skip that one, say the same thing. The next hadith is hadith 277, skipped, and 278. We just recite that one for a purpose. It's a short one. حدثنا موسى بن إسماعيل حدثنا وهيب حدثنا أيوب عن سليمان بن يسار عن أبي السلمة بهذه القصة قال فيه تدع الصلاة وتغتسل فيما سوى ذلك وتستفسر بثوب وتصلي. Now the hadith is saying the same thing, but why I have brought it is because there might be a question as it relates to blood. The hadith is saying that the same story that we mentioned about Salama and the blood that is not menstrual blood, we have discussed that. That Prophet said a person should take spiritual bath once she knows that she is not menstrual blood again. Then the Prophet said the person should now use a piece of cloth to cover her female organ where the blood can flow. So because the question that follows that maybe the blood is still flowing, then why is the person still praying? We all remember, we mentioned that one time, that the menstrual blood, as long as menstrual blood is a najas. So, but if it is not menstrual blood, if it is flowing from anywhere, then it is not called najas. Because why is the person praying despite the fact that it's using blood? So the ulama, what the jumhur agree on, that any blood that is not menstrual, it is not a najas. And I told us two stories then. One of them is, for instance, Ammar ibn Yasar, where the Prophet sent them on an errand, and he was with another Sahaba, and then when he was praying, the Kafir, they came to attack them. As they attacked them, they shot an arrow at him, even though he was oozing blood, but then he was still praying. And that is one. This is caused to the knowledge of the Prophet. That means that in blood, even though it's flowing from the body, it's not najas. So if one is praying for the salat, it's still acceptable. Then the second story is the story of Umar ibn Khattab when he was about dying. You remember somebody came and stabbed him, and then even with the blood, the prayer still went ahead. So that is for that. So the person for the woman is that she just use a cloth nowadays part to cover herself up, and then she can continue to pray, even though the blood is still oozing inside the part. So that is the essence of that hadith. Now the hadith 279, حدثنا قتيبة بن سعيد حدثنا ليس عن يزيد بن أبي حبيب عن جعفر عن عراك عن أروة عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أنها قالت إن أم حبيبة سألت نبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عن الدم فقالت عائشة فرأيت مرقنها ملعان دما فقال لها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم امكثي قدر ما كانت تحبسك حيضتك ثم اغتسلي. حديث صحيح أخرجه إمام أبو داود ومسلم والنسائي رحمهم الله جميعا. The hadith is from Aisha, and she said that the Habiba, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the blood. If you follow the story about the blood, then فقالت Aisha, and Aisha responded or said that I now saw the vessel in which the blood is flowing into, the vessel where she collected the blood. That means she saw the color was certainly the way it is thick texture like we mentioned, and again certainly perhaps the smell as compared to normal blood. Then that the Prophet responded to her, that is Habiba, that Habiba, Kufi, you should wait on the day, exactly the day in which you used to menstruate. Then after that, then you take your bath, spiritual bath, then you start praying. Now the interpretation, as we are sitting down, we can interpret it. That's about the blood. So it presupposes that that blood is a clear blood, that it is not a menstrual blood. Because the D is what? Like definite something, definite article. The D that is Adamu. So if you look at many of the ulama that interpret this hadith, they will say that Damu is Adamu istihada. And so it is clear to everyone, of course to Aisha now, and to the Prophet ﷺ, who was given the verdict, that this is not a menstrual flow. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ gave this verdict, that you should wait, this is not menstrual blood. Once it's not menstrual blood, any blood that flows after that, then it's not a menstrual blood. Then you take your bath, then you start praying. And that is the hadith. The last hadith for today, before we start some practical example. حدثنا عيسى بن حماد أخبرنا الليث عن يزيد بن الحبيب عن بقير بن عبد الله عن المنذر بن المغيرة عن أروة بن الزبير أن فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش حدثته أنها سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فشكت إليه الدم فقال لها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما ذلك عرق فانظري إذا أتى قرؤك أو قرؤك ولا تصلي وإذا مر قرؤك أو قرؤك فتطهري ثم صلي ما بين القرء إلى القرء أو ما بين القرء إلى القرء. الحديث صحيح أخرجه أبو داود وابن ماجه والنسائي رحمه الله جميعا. So it is intentional for those that are following the Arabic. So it can be mentioned as al-qur'u, it can be mentioned as al-qur'u according to our ulama and according to the ayah in Quran. Now the hadith, this one is from Fatima bint Hubaysh. Those that had istihada in the time of Prophet ﷺ, according to the ulama, they are about around 17 to 19. In the time of Prophet ﷺ that had the istihada, that is clear that this is not menstrual flow. Alhamdulillah for that. And so some of our ulama will derive the message from historical event that happened when he was alive, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the Fatima, the daughter of Abi Hubaysh, that he informed the Urwa, the Zubayr, it is informed that Fatima asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the blood. Again, the blood. So that means it is clear, it's hard. And the Prophet ﷺ responded that that blood that you're talking about, that you see is irqun, is a normal blood that is flowing. Today we will not go into medicine. But then again, this is like exactly the same thing as the medical report. Like I mentioned after my review and also interaction with specialists. The Prophet ﷺ said this is irqun. It is a blood that is a venous blood that is flowing. That I give an example. If somebody is using contraceptive pill, from the knowledge, we're not going into details today. The blood that is flowing will be a little bit different depending on the contraceptive pill is using. If you are using the progesterone or the progestin only based CP, or you are using combined oral contraceptive pill, in fact the two of them, they also have differences in their texture, in the color, and also in the odor. So like I said, we'll not go into that. Subhanallah al-azim, fatabarakallah ahsanul khaliqin. And I mentioned to us, of course, the state of Islam, we don't need science to prove Islam. But then, when it comes to Islam and science, it's always good sometime in the sitting of intellectuals to go back to that, just to make it firm in our mind. The Prophet said, that blood that you see, it is just a normal venous blood. That it is not what? It is not a menstrual blood. Yeah, as for you, Fatima, now look at the day, assess the day in which normally, usually what? Usually menstruate. Then after it has finished, then take your bath and what? And start praying. The hadith is clear. This is where we are going to stop today. Again, for those of us listening to the discussion, we need to follow the discussion to the end. Like I usually say, in one sitting, you can't give all the information. Otherwise, it becomes confusing. Now, what I said the other time is that the common thing in our environment is that somebody has the days he's menstruating. I want to repeat to summarize it again. 5 days she menstruates normally. Now, she might have a disease or maybe a condition. Now, she now starts menstruating 8 days or 9 days. Or she might be using contraceptive pills or anything. Then she starts what? Menstruating more than that. I said you divide them into two. This is the summary. We'll see how to it eventually. You divide those women into two. Now, if the flow is less than 15 days, that 15 days is very pertinent. If it is less than 15 days, there are two things ulama mention, and it's best to always take the one that is precautionary. That one is that if the woman is able to differentiate her usual, the normal menstrual blood, from the blood that is not menstrual. Then she uses that as a yardstick to say, okay, oh, I'm going to stop praying or I'm not going to stop praying. That's if she's aware, if she knows very well. And this is the position of Imam Shafi'i and some of our ulama. Now, the other ulama believe that in the hadith we just recited, two of them, what the Prophet mentioned is that you should just take the days in which you used to menstruate. Once that day is over, then take your spiritual bath and start what? And start praying. So some of the ulama believe that whether it is a physical or whether it is a medical condition, even if you can differentiate, as long as it is beyond your normal menstrual period, less than 15 days, then you start what? You take your bath and you start praying. The one that seems to be better, the one that seems to put your mind at peace, this is for women, and I believe we'll relay the information to them, is that these are opinions which is difficult to say which one is more, which one is small. But if, as we are sitting down from the hadith we have recited, the one that seems to put your mind at peace is that once the days of menstrual flow is known to the woman, whatever the condition is, once that time has passed, then she should take her spiritual bath and start praying the prayer. So this is one that is more precautionary. But remember, like I mentioned, that Imam Shafi'i, again, and some others, they brought their own evidences that if you can differentiate, then she should base her bathing and praying on the differentiation. But this is the second opinion. I mentioned it to the last time. Now this is for those less than 15 days. Now for those who are seeing the blood more than 15 days, and they already know their time that they usually menstruate. Now I mentioned that many of our ulama, many of the experts they believe that its menstrual blood ideally should not go beyond 15 days. So what is most likely that one is not menstrual blood? It can be more than that, but then that it's not a common thing. Then that the best thing at that particular time is to take her spiritual bath. Don't use the differentiation, whether you want to differentiate that this or this, not this. But I still believe that some ulama believe that the woman should still look at it and see if you can differentiate. In any case, like I mentioned, it is difficult to differentiate. So the summary is that for those who know their menstrual flow period, then they should use that as yardstick to stop to bath and then to start praying. Now the prayer, because I'm not sure we'll get there, because this is a practical event. If a woman is bleeding and it is menstrual flow and it's 5 days, the bleeding stopped by Zuhur, she is sure that it's stopped by Zuhur, then the woman will take her spiritual bath and start praying. But you know, some women, they will not be too sure. They will say that perhaps the blood will still flow. So they will not pray. They will still wait till it is time of Asri. If some of them will still wait beyond the Asri. So if it is clear, they have not prayed Zuhur. Now they have not prayed the Salat al-Asr. If it is the time it becomes clear to them that this is not menstrual flow, if it is before Maghrib, then the woman has to pray both Zuhur and Asr. I believe we know this, and I believe our women also know this. Because in a state of condition, we remember, when the rain is about falling, you are allowed to combine two salat. In the place of when you are sick, and it's difficult for you to be praying 1-1-1, it is also allowed to combine the two. Like we mentioned in this hadith, it's also allowed to combine this hadith to combine the salat. We'll get there. So the point I've passed across now is that as long as the time the woman stops bleeding is before Maghrib, then that woman must pray Zuhur and Asr. So if the woman stops bleeding before the Salatul Subhi or before the Fajr, assuming, for instance, in the night, let's say around 2 or 3 a.m., that is when the woman stops bleeding. So that woman still has to pray what? The Maghrib and the Salatul Isha. So the one that is that hadith is what I'm interpreting. Of course, if it is after the Subhi, then that Salat has passed. Then we just pray the Salatul Subhi. I think inshallah we'll stop at that. We'll continue releasing the information as it comes to mind. May Allah forgive us our shortcoming and admit us to paradise on the day of Qiyamah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.